gentlemen, Miss Maggie Smith.
For over a decade, Carol Burnett was the heartbeat of comedy in America. Week after week, she brought joy to millions, creating moments of laughter that are still remembered today. But there's one episode from 1977 that Carol refuses to watch. One that, despite earning critical acclaim and breaking the hearts of viewers, is a memory she can't face. It aired once, and only once. The episode stunned audiences, causing an uproar of mixed emotions. Critics were quick to call it brilliant, awards flooded in. Yet Carol, America's beloved comedian, couldn't bring herself to relive it. Not a single time in the 47 years since it first aired. Why? Because it was too real. It hit too close to home, and it was more pain than she could bear. So what happened in that one episode that made Carol Burnett, the woman who spent her career making people laugh, refused to face her own performance? Carol Burnett was born on April 26, 1933 in San Antonio, Texas. From the very start, her life was shaped by hardship. Her parents were both alcoholics, unable to care for her. Her father worked at a movie theater but struggled to hold a steady job. Her mother drank heavily and was emotionally absent. Both would later die from alcohol-related illnesses, leaving Carol to navigate a childhood that was anything but safe or secure. By the time Carol was a toddler, she had already learned what it felt like to be unwanted. Her parents, the people meant to nurture her, had chosen their vices over her. It was a lonely existence, and Carol quickly understood that laughter, something as simple as a joke, was a shield that could keep her from falling apart. When Carol's parents finally gave up on raising her, she was taken in by her maternal grandmother, Mabel White. In 1940, the two moved to Hollywood, but there was no red carpet waiting for them. They ended up in a small, run-down boarding house, surrounded by people who were barely scraping by. They lived off $20 a week, which was just enough to keep them fed. Barely. Yet, amid all the struggle, Carol found something her parents couldn't give her: unconditional love from Mabel. That love became her anchor in a world that otherwise felt like it was crumbling. And in this world of hardship, Carol built an escape: her imagination. She created a pretend twin sister, Karen, someone who was everything Carol wasn't. Confident, beautiful, always smiling. Carol's twin sister became her lifeline, and she played the part so well that even the other residents of the boarding house believed Karen was real. She would climb the fire escape, change her clothes and appearance, and reappear as Karen, dazzling those around her. Minutes later, she would switch back to Carol. This elaborate game of make-believe was more than just a childhood fantasy. It was Carol's way of surviving her circumstances. It gave her a sense of control in a world that often felt out of her hands. The adults around her, many of whom were battling their own demons, embraced her creativity because it was something pure and joyful in an otherwise bleak world. Yet, even in this makeshift family of sorts, survival was a constant struggle. On Saturdays, Carol and Mabel would go to the movies. Tickets cost a quarter, more than 10% of their weekly income. But for those few hours, Carol could leave behind the chaos and fear. On the big screen, there was beauty, order, and hope. But when the credits rolled, reality came crashing back. They couldn't even afford toilet paper, so they would discreetly steal it from the theater bathroom. One day, as Carol sat in the darkness of the theater, she mimicked Johnny Weissmuller's famous Tarzan yell. It was an innocent game, but what Carol didn't know was that she was honing a skill that would later become her signature. This childish imitation of a jungle cry became the foundation for her comedy career. She built breath control, vocal power, and timing, all without even realizing it. By the time she reached high school, Carol had set her sights on journalism, inspired by the dreams of her late mother. But when the time came to enroll at UCLA, she faced an obstacle. She couldn't afford the tuition. She was on the verge of giving up when a mysterious stranger appeared in her life, covering the $50 fee with no strings attached. This act of kindness would change everything. Carol, now with a chance at an education, shifted her focus from journalism to theater after taking a single elective class. It was a risky move, but for the first time in her life, she felt truly alive. Carol wasn't just surviving anymore, she was dreaming. And just like that, her dream started to take shape. By the end of her freshman year, Carol was named Most Promising Newcomer in the UCLA theater program. The award wasn't just a title, it was a sign that she was on the right path, that the dream she was chasing wasn't out of reach. In 1959, Carol landed her first major role in the Broadway show Once Upon a Mattress. The performance skyrocketed her career, earning her a Tony nomination and making her a household name. But success didn't come easy. It was the culmination of years of sacrifice, persistence, and a constant battle to break through. Her personal life, however, was not as easy. There were heartbreaks, betrayals, and loss, struggles that would have broken most people. Her first marriage ended in divorce after just a few years, a result of the strain that Carol's rising career put on her relationship. The pressure to succeed, the heartbreak of losing loved ones, and the isolation of being in the spotlight weighed heavily on her. But it was in 1977, during a live taping of The Carol Burnett Show, that Carol created a moment that would change everything. In one particular sketch, Carol portrayed Eunice Higgins, a woman whose dreams of fame were crushed by a talent show. The sketch was meant to be a mix of comedy and dysfunction, but this time, the tone shifted. There were no jokes, no exaggerated movements, just raw, unfiltered pain. The audience watched as Eunice, played by Carol, was mocked by the judges, one of whom was portrayed by real-life game show host Alan Lutton. The moment was devastating. The pain in Eunice's eyes was real. Carol had made the sketch so personal that it became more than just a performance. It became a painful reminder of her own struggles. Her crew members were left in tears, and Carol, too, felt overwhelmed by the intensity of it. She never watched the episode again. In a 2010 interview, Carol admitted that the performance was too real. She said, "Eunice's pain felt like my own." And it was. Carol Burnett's legacy is more than just making people laugh. It's about telling stories that resonate with the deepest parts of the human experience. That one episode, The Gong Show, showed the world that even the funniest among us carry scars too deep to face. Through it all, Carol's life continued to inspire, teaching us that laughter can be a form of survival. But behind the humor, behind the applause, Carol Burnett's journey was one of unrelenting resilience, vulnerability, and love.